Hi, good evening. Thanks for being here today. I am going to get a little intense with this one, but I believe that more people should trust how they feel. I'd say out of most of, like where I found the most issue was when I didn't trust my instincts. Now I had reason that it it being a complex situation to why that there was a big pause for me in trusting my instincts. But it's very important. I also want to say that, there's a lot more money in, working for somebody else, like making ads and, as I look deeper into, doing social media and things like that, that people who are sharing their lives instead of something that is created by a company that you're paid to do make less money. However, I do believe that there are some people that I feel I have a duty to, I feel that I owe, not that I owe, just that the type of content I'm creating, for me to feel full internally, I feel, and I could take the whole thing and throw it away, and it wouldn't really matter because, I deal with physical pain and really uncomfortable. I spend nearly 100% of my time by myself. And, I try to, I continue to learn and also continue to, speak about what that I'm processing. And, you know, I'm learning far too much at this point that, you know, like, that my consciousness has been so open that I'm tired, and I've almost been feeling like the end of my life, but in another, it's just I don't go there with thinking and discussing things that, you know, like if I'm not feeling well, I'm it's a real thing, you know, like so you know like I want to start off with that, but I do want to be sure that I keep this format because I want to uh, put my best foot forward. And it's a little, bumpy in the beginning, but it's also very genuine. I know in my rich experience that watching somebody's real life comforts us. To see that somebody else is dealing with some of the things that maybe aren't as bad as what we're dealing with. But, a part of it is that, being very intuitive and not really asking for this much information from the world is that, like, I never, like, I feel that some people, they bring things onto themselves, but I've been very honest, and I ended up in a world that is not my world. And terribly true. It's my responsibility to be responsible for where that I go. And, I think a lot of people that they have a habit of keeping people out, or, like, it, I, but, like, I spent over 30 years not hardly having a discussion, not feeling as if that I could really, sit close to somebody and know how they're feeling. The signals were all backwards for me. And as I'm going through this, I am, seeing that I can, and seeing that is possible for me is really my only, like, connection is so much for us. And to have never really had that is a massive blessing that I just want to, kind of, remind you as well as myself that we're all always in the making. And that, if there's, something that you feel, drawn to, that you should do it. And so, like, I spend a very large majority of my time right here. And it's because I deal with a very painful, I don't even want to put names on it, because we're still, like, in this phase of discovering what the problem is. But it's something that I've dealt with for a long time. It's just it's like an overwhelming feeling of, like, physical pains. And, it's allowed me to understand in kind of a black and white way emotions, because, like, I didn't deal with death very well my whole life. It's hard anyway, but it's like, I was so emotional that I couldn't hold steady. At some point, I finally just reached a new reality. And it involves, just choosing that we want to be the better person, and to be, honest is something that, I hope sets other people free. I am pretty broken today. I'm not sure how that I look or feel. I I think that one of the true things is that I I really want to be able to share my art with people. And so if you feel like that you feel in support of me making these videos, which I've done unconstructively for quite a few years, like, this is where I turn the corner and I say that instead of me focusing on sort of redeveloping myself and understanding emotionally where I stand in life, that I can sort of hone in on how that I can share what I've learned with other people. So, like, I've got some topics floating around. One of them is this transparency, being in a place of transition. I think that this is like another living state of being where that some people, like, people don't know what to do. Like, some people want to do something else, but they don't know what to do. And, suddenly you've had your penis removed, or, like, just, sorry. I'm just saying that, even when it comes down to, like, very intricate art on the skin and piercings and, not to mention addiction. And so, like, I'm going to talk about addiction, and I'm going to talk about sex. And so these are some of the things that are kind of are really amplifying, like, why that this transitional point in life is so hard. And like, it really is true that I've spent this much time by myself, that I have a very I've adapted to just feeling alone. And it's like that I live in outer space or something. It feels really weird. And so I'm trying to land back on Earth as much as I can, but safely, and also educated. Like, why are you going to go somewhere else unless you're going to learn something? Well, I'm doing my best to land, put my pieces back together, figure out how that they can be reconfigured or, moved, or, rediscovering, like, out the box, like, and also, tying some of these things into the art that I make. Like, I am looking at, like, I want to be able to do this. I think that even if it's really small, and I have, a small development, and, somebody, really finds a way to help some of these things get a little bit further, that if I can make a small income to do this, that is the goal. I don't foresee myself working a regular job. I maybe ever, not that I am not going to try, but my pain is insanely severe, and it it's a turning point that, if I'm not really careful with where I put my feet, I'm going to fall. And so I just want people to be aware that, you know, look out for some of the things I made. I put a lot of time in them, and, like, maybe some of them that I made a long time ago are from like a spacewalk, and just kind of always having been in this sort of isolated state. And like, I don't watch the news, and I don't really look at people's Facebooks, and I just never really have. And I, like, if people would send me things, I'd look at them, but that's whenever I started realizing, like, maybe I should start sending people things. And so I'm going to try to get more comfortable with that. And if, you're watching this and it's not for you, then delete it. But if, unfollow me, but forward it to somebody that it might help, like, I think that, hearing other people's stories are a great alternative to drugs. And, I'm not here to condemn anybody, obviously. But I also understand enough about addiction to know that, all people really want is a deep connection. People want to be able to feel comfortable, and they want to be able to know what they're thinking. And, like, people also want to feel safe and letting people think what they're know what they're thinking. And there's a real dance to it. There's a real, true reality that, you almost have to withstand for a while before that you can really enjoy it. And, so, like, I am telling myself that is my hat. And, like, I partially want to be honest with myself, like, if this has been a wrong step for me to be sharing all of these things about myself, like, maybe this is where I figured that out. But, in every other aspect, I do feel like I have a lot to give. And so I think that is all I wanted to touch on for today. But I appreciate you tuning in and listening. Maybe I can start getting some likes on things. And, I've had this Facebook account. This is going on Instagram and Facebook, and I think I'm going to put more on YouTube. That I have, like, it's just the weirdest thing to scroll through all of the things that, like, I've had this Facebook account since, since Facebook started. Like, when I went, like, when Facebook started, I have had this. And I think the other thing that I also wanted to, kind of discuss is that, like, I'm tired, like, there's so much AI and bots, and even, like, in chat rooms, I always feel like that I'm dealing with, I feel like that There's more to who we are. And I have lost every thought that I had whenever that I first said bought. So, okay. We'll see you next time.